I'm never going to be the same. Anyhow, spawning in the top left, playing for Team Rotti, it is Goblin.
Why do I only see his eyes? Like...
I think he's in a dark, dark place. The Death Star. That's what all Zergs look like, by the way, when they're playing.
I guess so. And spawning up down to the bottom right-hand side, it is Vanya. Lights flashing.
This is very much like, you know those memes where it's like, this is a Terran player playing, and it's like, yeah. And then this is a Zerg player playing. Also, just focusing, and then it's just the Protoss just sat there, like chilling beyond chilling. Ah, this is good.
Laser beams go brrr.
Yes. Okie dokie. So Vanya against Goblin. This is definitely a cool one. I don't think any player is like a super favorite here. Actually, I think they're both super closely matched. Goblin is a little bit more predictable for me. That being said, I don't know how often these guys have duked it out on the ladder.
Yeah, I'm curious. For me, I love seeing kind of, as you said, for a Goblin, for example, when he actually burst on in a proper fashion, getting himself a decent WCS placement. It's always great to see the turnover of new talent coming into the scene all the time. And for me, these two definitely reflect that very, very nicely. I mean, back when next time when we get onto LAN situations once again, I'm expecting these names to be pushing up into, you know, the bracket stages and things like that. So good series on the way, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just to give people a bit of an idea about MMR. So both these guys can very comfortably get up to like the 6.6s and stuff. Which is incredibly high. You might be like, oh, well, Serral's like 7K. And it's like, yeah, but that's Serral. That's literally like one of the greatest of all time kind of things. And getting those kind of numbers is very, very difficult. We'll see what happens between these two, though. So Vanya opting for very, very standard opening here, getting the hatch down. You know, he's got the Lings out to deal with the probe and get down his third base. Whereas Goblin, he's a man that loves his Stargate. And we'll see. We'll see what happens with it.
Yep. And with that, with the third base on the way down as well for Vanya, we'll just see a bit more normal compared to what we had prior with our series. So that's fine. But, you know, these players still have the potential of throwing out some extra little spanners wherever they can. And I'm hoping for a Void Ray, but it's not always.
I was actually thinking that. I was like, is it going to be a Void Ray? Yes. Like, James is going to be so freaking happy. You follow people on Twitter and stuff. You're up to date with Twitter, you know. So Euthermal recently made a tweet like, oh yeah, Goblin said he wanted to try out Void Rays for a little bit. And Goblin went up like 200 MMR with a full screen of green in his match history. So I actually think Goblin might be one of the guys that's utilizing Void Rays way more than other Protosses.
Yeah.
Maybe it started off as memes, but maybe it culminated in something that he actually finds very, very good.
I mean, it would make sense. When I look at the changes from the previous Void Ray to this Void Ray, it's not just the idea that, yes, they are faster now. I think the old Void Ray suffered from the idea that even its acceleration was a little bit weak, which made it then not as microbial, right? But now it feels like more the complete package. Is he making a second Stargate?
Yes. So I was looking at this, right? And he was taking his third and fourth gas very quickly. So the second Stargate, and he's getting +1 ridiculously fast. Holy crap. We talked about Kevin having an aneurysm. I think Kevin just found his favorite son. Like, this is quite the opening, but they're also cheaper, right? Like Void Rays, they don't feel as much of an investment anymore, like, which is such a big change.
Yeah, definitely. +1 air weapons as well as more Void Rays coming out. This is going to get very spicy indeed. And Vanya is going to need all the knowledge he can get from this one. Now, of course, he has seen Void Rays already, but it's whether or not he really determines that this commitment is large coming out from Goblin.
I do have some funny stories about Goblin. So back in some of the tournaments where he maybe didn't do the best in, this was kind of after his WCS surge, I suppose. He was like, he was talking to me in Rotti, and he was talking about how he did the same build twice in a row. And then he was like, Yeah, and guess what? I did the same build again. I never thought my opponent would have expected the same thing 3 times in a row. And it's like, Goblin, you're literally known for that, dude. And so he's definitely got some special thoughts on how the map or how the game is played out. Does he have a prismatic alignment available? He actually has it available, but didn't go for it. Didn't click on the hatchery with it.
Yeah, it's almost always good to use on this 4th base location, especially. There's not usually that much anti-air around there. Normally it might be a queen or 2, but really not something too severe. Oh, he actually uses it on overlords, and it's going to be heading into the mineral line now.
So he's actually using the prismatic alignment kind of on drones here a little bit. I mean, I know it's on the overlords. So Vanya on Goblin's side of the map, this is +1 lings.
A lot of lings.
A lot of lings and banelings as well against the mass void rays. So that is one way to go about dealing with void rays. You just
trying to break down. He gets the wall down here as well, and he's going to be able to bust on in. Overcharge goes down on that shield battery as well, but he's surrounded instantly and brings that down. Really denying a lot of the defensive capabilities here. He's going to get so many workers from this. The Void Rays cannot clean this up that fast. 9 workers have already gone down. He's going to have to keep running around in circles here, trying to strike at the 3rd base, but that's not going to be for anything.
Okay, so the Cybernetics Core actually finished up the +1. So these Void Rays, they're pretty improved, and I gotta commend Goblin so far. He has done such a good job of just making sure that he isn't dead to this. And if he does survive, which he's doing a really good job of remaking this wall as well, we do have a... In fact, what's that upgrade called, James? Flux Veins on the way.
Don't worry, I've got you. He's going to be hitting into the 3rd base as well here, but the Ling's going to be flooding in. He got himself a lot of kills there in terms of the army units, so that's going to open up this quite nicely to kill on a few probes here and there. No, don't stick with the Adept. Kill something else. Kill the Nexus. And he will focus it down, but here come the Lings. Here come the Void Rays to try and stop this. He's just going to sacrifice it on, get this 3rd base, and move on away.
It was definitely costly. Goblin started moving across the map with the Voids. Because I think he was like, no way will it be way more lings, right? Wrong. Vanya held down the ling button pretty damn hard and takes out the 3rd base. But now he's got to deal with a pretty large number of voids.
I mean,
double Cybernetics Core on the way, by the way. Is it a mistake? Is it planned? We have no idea.
No, absolutely not. Double upgrades would be very cool, but he's going to actually go head-to-head with these queens. He's going to move away for a moment. They've got a lot of energy for transfuses, and transfuse isn't as good as it used to be, but it's still pretty damn good when you're dealing with Void Rays. So focusing on this extractor for a moment, but the thing is that this is a lot of Void Rays now. We're slowly getting to that point where it's going to end up being critical mass.
Certainly, and I mean, one thing that Void Rays are really bad against is like parasitic bombs and fungals and stuff, but wow, he's going to actually take out this 4th base. And yes, super far away. And that Void Ray count is getting really damn high.
Okay, double upgrades coming in here for Goblin as well, as we have Nidus Worm going down here for Vanya. Vanya's style of dealing with these Void Rays, aside from making a lot of queens because they're a great defensive capability against Void Rays, is going to be what we see from a lot of top-tier Zergs, which is just ignore the Void Rays almost to a certain extent when you're being aggressive and just try and deal some crippling damage to the economy or the walls back at your opponent's base.
Seeing this many lings and the fact that his opponent isn't really trying to take another base, I'd be thinking here like, okay, what's Vanya doing to me? Does he actually have recall available? He does. So, you know, the next few minutes of this game are going to get real freaking spicy depending on what Vanya chooses to do.
So Hydralisk's being added on as well. And now that he's realizing that this threat of Void Rays is accumulating, he could... Ooh, it would have been quite the sacrifice and not going to be for anything. Still a lot of energy on those queens.
Yeah. Okay, so Nidus Worm kind of goes up in a... Actually, that isn't too crazy a position. I do like the fact that he's kind of keeping behind enough Void Rays just to defend. And also just being aggressive, just keeping tabs on his opponent here. Oh, here's the Nidus, though. What's his response going to be?
All the way at the front of the base, not trying to get into a base by any means or any stretch of the imagination, but this opens things up because Nidus Worm allows your queens to now be offensive where you didn't previously have the creep spreading throughout the middle of the map, right? So now he can be offensive with this and deal with the Void Rays on the offensive if needs be too.
These Void Rays are getting some real juicy hits in here. And I mean, if Goblin just kind of says, okay, I'm not gonna cancel that 3rd, I think he's actually not gonna be in too bad shape.
I think Vanya is spreading himself too thin here, maybe. He needs to deal with one of the threats first. because at the front, the carriers were doing all right. That is a lot of queens, though, now at the front here. He's going to get this base, though.
The 2-1 is finishing up for Goblin here, as long as he doesn't... In fact, the Cyber Core is totally safe, so having carriers plus Void Rays with 2-1 upgrades against 0-0, I mean, we've been privileged today, James. These are some kooky games.
Oh, I'm loving it, mate. I'm loving it. I return, and this is what I get. I'm all about this. It's all the Void Rays, killing off all the bases. The siege up at the front continues, and Hatchery goes down. But there's going to be a few extra carriers coming out here. And this isn't that much anti-air, to be perfectly honest. If carriers and Void Rays grouped up against this, they'd kill it.
And he's still got the overcharge available. The recall was used. These queens. Let's see Void Rays in full action here. The queens, there's no creep to retreat. Trying to transfuse, but in fact, what's he doing? He just went on top of the Hydras.
Yeah, he got the Nidus Swarm. He had to kill the Nidus Swarm off for any reinforcements, but that's going to be GG. Goblin will take the first game here in this series. I like it a lot. All the air army, Ben. Oh, it's so nice.
So, yeah, I mean, it was super nice. It felt that was a bit pre-planned by Vanya to do a Baneling all-in regardless of what he was going up against. Because, I mean, the +1 was early. But then as soon as he saw the Void Rays, he's like, screw it. I'm going with it anyway. And it was a lot of lings afterwards, which did damage. But I got to give Goblin quite a lot of credit. His probe drilling was really good. Yeah. He only lost like 8 to 10 probes against all of that. He also didn't F2 like a crazy person. Like his unit stayed in position at that third base, meaning he lost bare minimal. Very well played by Goblin.
Yep, very nice indeed. And we're going to go on to game number 2. It will be on Everdream as our next map here between these two. There is a world where I see a Ling Bane attack working out against this. I don't know about you, Ben, in terms of like maybe a different execution, maybe a different timing. What are your thoughts?
I definitely think it could. It's kind of one of those things when you think about it. It's like, how possibly can Banelings and Lings work against air units? Well, it's kind of like how Roaches work against Mutas quite often. You get to kill the economy before it really gets rolling.
Yeah.
But the exact math behind it, it's going to be one that isn't quite sussed out just yet, with the Void Rays being totally different to how they've ever been before.
Yep, and if Goblin sees this as the golden opportunity with the Golden Armada to be able to continue on in this series, we might just see it again here with how well he's able to execute it, and especially if he's able to defend as well. Let's get into Everdream for our second game here of this series, as we have spawning up to the top right in the red, it is Goblin. Team Roddy, Team Roddy.
I like that his icon's a phoenix as well. And spawning over in the bottom left-hand side, as the blue Zerg, it is Vanya.
All right, Everdream. I wouldn't mind seeing Goblin do it again. I mean, if he's confident with it, and if Thermal's tweet is correct, then why on earth not, Ben?
I like today. Void Rays have had a pretty good success rate. And I can imagine Blizzard, like the balance guy that did this, he sat watching this with popcorn. He's like, this is exactly what I intended, you know, like just having a great time.
High-fiving himself. Yeah, Void Rays are back. Yeah,
exactly.
Everybody else like, no. Yeah, they've been brutal.
But yeah, so Goblin is a guy that very much is stuck to his strats, his tactics. So he's also always loved Stargate. Like that's one of his things. So having another unit that he can make that comes out of the Stargate, well, I'm looking forward to see what Goblin does, because if it is Void Rays again, I'm also curious how Vanya is going to respond to it, because I'm not sure I totally was behind what he was trying that game, but we'll see what he changes.
That's actually a good point that you bring up, though, is that the Stargate now has even more option, right? And that can be scary for an opponent having to deal with all that multitude of options that a Protoss is going to have available to them. Not saying that an Oracle is game ending, not saying a Phoenix is game ending, but some of them, have certain little differences in terms of responses that you're going to have to commit to.
Yeah, definitely. Vanya this game opts for quite an early third base here. The hatch went up around like the 1 minute 30, 1 minute 40 mark. So very, very early was that. Goblin still hasn't chose his tech, which, given the gas is getting up to 150, I'd imagine is going to be a Stargate again, Kalaris. And, wow, Goblin with a variety. I'm liking it. Maybe joining Team Rotti was all he needed to become the complete package.
Maybe. That was a swift deny on Ben's request for the Stargate. But that's fine. We're going to see what he's going to be able to do with this. I mean, it probably ends up being glaives from here on out, but I mean, I won't mind.
It's going to be into Void Ray, though, you know?
I'd like that. I'm okay with this. You know what? I should get back on the 1v1 ladder. All of my 4v4s have looked exactly like Mass Void Rays for a long time, even when they were rubbish. But now I could do it in 1v1.
We're both wrong, James. It is Blink. And Vanya, looking at this, there is only one thing that Protosters normally do, and that is Adept Glaives. And the thing is that blinking doesn't signify that it is blink. It just signifies that something's upgrading. So I am very curious about Goblin's build here, because blink usually isn't a go-to on 2 bases.
Yeah, that's a curveball for sure. We're going to have to see Vanya really being astute with his scouting in terms of what units he's seeing, I suppose, at the front. Might be a bit of more of a giveaway, because if you see no heightened number of adepts, even though there is 1 adept over there, maybe that could be a little bit more helpful.
We'll see, because this is the only Overlord on Goblin's side of the map. And that is a lot of gateways being produced. So is it going to be like 6 gates and Warp Prism?
Yeah.
This is going to be really, really fiery to hold off.
Yeah, this is... I guess it's a little bit more old school in theory, like, and it can be very potent still. It's just that, you know, there is a multitude of things that Protoss can do, and this is an older one and can be quite scary. So he's making roaches though to start things off. It's all about, you know, trying to. Oftentimes what you see, I suppose, is that when you're going up against a Blink Stalker army, is you try and really force the engagement onto them hard if you feel like you've got the numbers, and try and get on top of them so that the Blink is less impactful.
So this is me purely thinking about this, and I've seen everything, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't entirely sure about Goblin revealing the fact to that Overlord that he had more than 1 Stalker.
Yes.
Because immediately it's like, okay, you're not doing the Adept build, and we've seen nothing but just pure Lings being made, which is absolutely what you want against these Stalkers. He's also instantly morphing the Ravagers, which, you know, you don't really want against Adepts. So Vanya's had more time than normal to prepare for what he's seen now, given that Goblin went for the Overlord.
And the extra thing as well is that Ravagers have 1 extra range over Roaches, right? So like they can contest with Stalkers a little better, even with their auto attacks. Never mind Corrosive Bile trying to add extra requirements for Blinks going down when you're trying to push this away. So extra little things here for Vanya could spell success in this fight.
2 more range, James. 2 more range,
2.
You know?
Sorry, I apologize.
It's all right being an encyclopedia for absolutely every upgrade in the game, but you've got to get the basics right too, James, all right?
Sorry.
He went for the wraparound with the Lings, but Goblin moved down to the low ground. So far, this is nice play by Goblin.
From every angle here, trying to get that surround, and that will actually play well because he had to blink everything away from this. And now Blink is on cooldown for every single Stalker. Having to try to pick them up onto the high ground here, and now actually getting high ground vision will blink them up after the cooldown. But he lost a lot of Stalkers in that.
He certainly did. Even though it's like just 4 Stalkers lost, that's a lot of hull damage being done to these Stalkers. And Vanya, he's doing all the right stuff here. Yes, he's producing Roaches, but he's producing a hell of a lot of Lings. I'm a bit scared about this counterattack. Does he think that there's a 3rd base? Looks like he did, but Goblin isn't planning on the 3rd anytime soon by the looks of it.
Yeah, he might be abandoned. This could end up in a weird situation here, because now he's actually going to be hitting the wall. What are the Stalkers going to do? They're so far away from trying to help this. He's going to lose a lot of workers in the process. He's trying to recall, going down from the main, and that is the best response you could possibly hope for, but he still needs to bring his probes away.
I'm a little surprised that Vanya ran in here with Goblin, because fighting Stalkers on this ramp, I mean, the Corrosive Biles make it a bit easier, I suppose, but...
Yeah. They have to hit a few of the Stalkers there on the ramp because they have no other choice. They have to be fighting. They have to try and save this position. Blinking down onto the low ground from the front of that ramp was important, but there's still more Corrosive Biles coming out. He's trying to blink away from them, and this is a lot of damage incurred here by Goblin.
Oh, Vanya doing what he does best, getting a ton of units and just marching it at his opponent. And these Lings, when they start getting on top of the Blinkstalkers like that, it just kind of renders them useless.
Yeah, that's a nom 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 moment. And even putting on pressure against this, actually underpowering some of these gateways. So even if he wanted more units in, he's going to be warping in a less amount here. As pushing on against this, that's what you do against Blinkstalkers. Just force the issue, get right on top of them with this army and try to wrap around, forcing the lift-ups from this Warp Prism instead of a lot of the Blinks. Trying to micro his heart out here, and he's not doing too bad, all things considered, but it's just too little too late for Goblin.
Yeah, it's a game of numbers at this point, isn't it? Vanya, he's got a better economy, he's got more units, and GG Vanya ties up the series, James.
Oh, wait, has it all been 2-1 so far for us?
Pretty much.
Nice. I like it because the games have been varied. They've been entertaining.
Except Lambo.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. Well, we're going to go to a short break, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep this train going. It's a lot of PVZs, but very varied PVZs so far. We'll be back after this for game number 3. Our series keep entertaining time and time again here so far for our first day of this week's broadcasts, as we've got Vanya and Goblin 1-1 currently going on to their final match here in this best of 3. Ben, are you not entertained?
I'm freaking entertained, you know. In fact, that's when the music goes, you know, duh, 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 like freaking it's amazing. It's amazing. What a day, you know. We haven't got to cast Terran yet. And you could be like, oh, poor the Muslim. But I've been thoroughly entertained with all these PVZs that we've had so far. And not one of them has been like one player is obviously way better than the other one. Maybe Lambo versus King Cobra, but still King Cobra put up a sick fight on Eternal. And now we're going to the decider between Goblin and Vanya on Ice and Chrome.
Let's do it. Down to the bottom left-hand side in the red once again. It is Goblin. Gotta get the pawns in there,
Vuvuzelas, And spawning over in the top right, currently doing a 12 pool, is Vanya. If my opponent gave me a GL have fun when I'm doing a 12 pool, would there be a little part of me deep down inside that's kind of grinning, like smiling evilly? Maybe a little bit.
I gotta get my cheeky Kalaris soundbite out from Apollo at this point, because that is some cheeky stuff, and I'm okay with it. It's a good mix-up.
I haven't said that during this stream, and normally I say that to you quite a bit in private. Cheeky Claras.
Yeah, no.
This is definitely cheeky.
I can't believe, there was a few tournaments whilst this is going down. He's making lings, and he's going to end up spotting it in a moment. There was tournaments where I would tune in, and all you guys would be saying it to each other, and I'm like, oh, I'm still remembered.
I can't remember who was it. I think it was Kevin that said it a lot. Okay, guess the first probe. What is Goblin's response going to be to this so far? So, not going for the Nexus. Looks like he's going to be going for the full Warlock, maybe?
Looks that way.
He actually made the gap, though, not near the gateway. Bit unusual, but he's going to have a lot of time to pop out that Zealot. I'm just worried about the next Zealot, maybe a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. You either have to go around on the backside of this pylon or at the front, and then you're vulnerable. But if you go the backside, you're actually wasting a little bit of time actually getting there. Woo. Calm down.
The dance of the Zealot and the Ling. Because losing that gateway isn't something you want to do, but you don't want to get the Zealot surrounded either.
Well, the Zealot can go front now if it really wanted, but it's not going to do so. He needs to make another building. And actually, that's not a full wall off. Oh, panic mode.
Oh my gosh. It's the... Dude, how many games of slow Lings have we seen doing this kind of stuff to Protosses? It is insane.
I don't even know what to say. He has to pull the probes off the line as well. The Zealot down on the low ground is dying off. And now this one's extremely weak. There's an Adept coming out, but if you're not careful, that's going to get surrounded too.
Yeah, this Adept, he obviously deals very well. And he does have a shade, so, he will pop out soon. Oh, no, he won't. No, he won't. Okay. But this is already getting a little bit dicey, yeah.
If he gets the pylon, actually, that's pretty decent. He's droning behind this, so he did quite a bit of damage there. How many workers? 4 dead in total? Or more?
Let's have a look. 5 in total, 4 in that last little skirmish, but that is definitely not the opening that you wanted. And I do think that a lot of that was because of this cyber core not having the gap next to the gateway, actually. It was a bit problematic for Goblin. And now he's on out of 54 supply. Oh, it's definitely not a good position, but he is going Stargate, so he's obviously winning, isn't he, James?
Yes, I'll go with it, sure. Yeah, I mean, coming back to the small things, if the Zealot is in a hole next to the original gateway, then the second Zealot popping out is right next to it as well, which means that you can actually put on technically pressure against those Zerglings a little bit earlier, right? With the 2 Zealots, you're less scared of the idea of them being surrounded at that specific position. You don't want them to be surrounded, but at least you can do some hits and move back, etc., and have that little dance a little bit easier.
This probe being sat at the forward third is a little unusual. I wouldn't expect this to be the normal third that he would take, given that the other one seems a bit easier to defend, but it's very scary going up against a guy like Vanya, because Vanya, he was known very much for being aggressive doing the all-ins. He can also, well, in fact, we've seen 2 big all-ins from him in this series so far, so the fact that Goblin hasn't been able to scout, it's definitely a scary position to already put yourself in, really.
So he spots, well, I mean, he was always going to spot it in the end, I suppose. Loses the Overlord for it, but it's very much worth for Vanya here.
So he's making the Phoenix second. Okay, now he cancel it and make the Void Ray. Now,
it was a bait.
Was it, though? Like,
But does it change the response, I suppose, is what?
Yeah. Does it? I don't know. Very curious. Goes for the second Stargate. So I do like the fact that he's resorting back to what worked in the series so far, but
I think it's a minor mind game, right? Like, you're just trying to hope your opponent doesn't flood again. But I mean, even if you saw a Phoenix, you'd flood. And he's moving across the map with plenty of roaches, plenty of lings.
That's what I mean. Like, that just made the second Void Ray pop out quite a bit later. Okay, this is a good little catch, because this is a way... In fact, does he have prismatic alignment? He does, which it would work on these Ravagers as they're spawning.
Definitely would. Gotta be careful, though. Keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on your Void Rays. That was close. This one at the back is going to take quite a bit of damage here, but the Lings are already working on that Cybernetics core, and if you can bring down that Cybernetics core, it's going to open up a significant hole in this wall. As here, the Queens have come over as well. I didn't even realize they were here. That's going to cause problems for the Void Rays.
I mean, Void Rays are really good, and there are a lot of shield batteries going up. 2 Void Rays at a time popping out now.
Yep.
This is spicy.
Definitely so. He's got a few force fields available to him if he needs them. He's meant to try and do a little bit of wall. Here come the Lings, though, pushing against every single part of this wall to go in, actually go for the wraparound on these sentries, and actually they don't even really spend much of their force fields before actually getting put on here, as the Lings will now move into that main base as well. See that the double Stargate is churning away, doing damage to the infrastructure at the front of this wall as well here. The Void Rays are scrambling to try and do as much work as they can on towards this army, but it might not be enough. He's pushing it a little bit away for now, though, keeping the Void Rays alive.
He is, and there are more shield batteries are fully made here. Battery overcharge, he's been very patient about launching that, hasn't used it yet.
Yeah.
Still waiting until the last moment here is Goblin, but these Queens, they're starting to stack up here. And the shield batteries, they're all dying. Down to 1 here, just 1.
Probes are dying as well. There's the shield overcharge, but it's not going to be enough at this point in time as he tries to go for it at the last second that he needs to. But that is a huge army now moving into the main base here of Goblin, and will be able to push hard into these probes. There are very few fighting units left here. Aside from those Void Rays, they're going to have a huge tall task ahead of them here to try and clean up the rest of this before taking critical damage. He's down to 20 workers, cleans up, but he's going to lose his Nexus as well, potentially.
I mean, these Queens, they have to hold on pretty strong here. Nice micro by Goblin, but is losing the Nexus to these Lings.
Ooh.
So Vanya, he did what he came to do, right? Like, I mean, he hasn't killed Goblin, but basically, he's chopped both his arms off.
I'll bite your ankles.
Yeah, he went full Black Knight on him, you know?
He'll try. He doesn't have much left in him, as his legs may get swept from underneath him as well soon if he's not careful. But here come the Void Rays. They've got to do a huge amount of work. How many Queens and Spores are up?
Not a super amount, only 5 Queens, but they are popping out of 3 hatcheries, and Spore Crawler count's pretty low. I mean, you still got to respect this army. Well, that's 1 Queen falling, maybe 2 here. Oh!
This is maybe the perfect window for him. That Hydralisk Den's about to finish up. The Ling's going to try and flood in. Oh, what a great little wall off there, all things considered. It bought him a little bit of time here, but he's still going to have to go up against these Queens, and Hydralisks will pop out eventually too.
Goblin's actually microing this really well. Yes, he lost quite a few extra probes. He's down to 14 probes, made that 13 here, and the Lings still going ham. Nice micro, nice hold position, but he needs to move those Lings, but the Void Ray is just ransacking the base of Vanya.
Yeah, 8 Hydralisks are on the way here, though, and the other bases are still mining, which means there's going to be even more Hydralisks for him to have to deal with, despite a valiant effort here with these Void Rays. There's the Hydras popping out right underneath those Void Rays as well. That is unfortunate there for Goblin.
When you're down to 11 probes, you know, you've got your second Nexus up and stuff, but Vanya from his Dungeon of Doom is looking like he's in quite a nice position here against Goblin.
He's into these situations. He's okay with it. He's going to be able to deal with this quite nicely and push this up into a very tight spot where, unfortunately, I mean, maybe you can only get out with a recall without taking critical damage.
Yeah, I guess Goblin's going to use this position as you have to respect it. You have to keep enough anti-air here while trying to deal damage with those Void Rays near the third of Vanya.
Tries to get himself some drones. Gets a pick off here and there. Not too bad. There's a little bit of mining time, but it's not that much as we now continue to have probes being produced for Goblin at the back and even +1 weapons. So trying to find transitions where he can.
I think this is one of those moments where it's like, what would Rotty do? Yes, +1.
That's right. Forgo the warp gate wherever you may. No, you already had that. Never mind.
This is always a sticky situation to be in, though. And Vanya, he's gonna soon be able to just kind of do what he did before, but now with way more anti-air.
The crazy thing as well is during all of this, he's been spreading his creep. So anytime these fights are going on, and if he had queens to support as well, they could eventually once again be quickly part of the offensive force too. So everything is coming up roses here for Vanya.
Goblin's always done a good job of kind of defending, I feel, with like units. Like, look at this adept, just walked in a nice position here. Vanya, though, baited those adepts from the natural. Now he goes for the natural. But again, nice probe drilling. So Goblin, he's been very good with his micro. It's just, this is exactly where Vanya wants his opponent to be, on the other side of the map.
Yeah, any opportunity that these Lings are getting, though, to be annoying with that is too many Hydralisks.
They, Photon Overcharge is, oh no, they're all unpowered.
Yep. And this is going to be difficult. I mean, even if he just sits here and takes the Nexus and just walks home, then it's a guaranteed victory, and that will be GG. Vanya will take the series 2